Welcome to Vacation Rental Mastery, where your host, Karan Narang, guides you through harnessing vacation rental investments. Whether you're new to vacation rentals or expanding your portfolio, this podcast fuels your path to freedom. Join us in this movement to transform your life. Ready for change and legacy building? You're in the right place. Let's embark on this freedom journey and master vacation rental investing together.
So Robert, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Robert, born and raised, and I still live in central New Jersey. I got into real estate when I was 23 as a real estate agent, and I still am one today. I have a small team around me. I have a mortgage brokerage shop as well, and I've been investing for about 6 years. And my investments are all long-term rents at the moment, and I've done a little bit of flipping in the meantime. And really looking to get into short-term rentals as well as some mid-term rentals, but short-term rentals I think are my next forte. Really want to get into kind of like beach properties in New Jersey, very popular, very historically well-seasoned. I think it's kind of a place that you can continue to find solid cash flow.
Okay, so Robert, you also mentioned earlier that you did have a short-term rental that I think you sold out. What was your experience with that?
No, I didn't have a short-term rental. I've only sold one property that I've rented out. That was a long-term rental, and all the flips have been short-term, but they weren't short-term rentals.
Okay, so no experience whatsoever with short-term rentals. What makes you want to get into this now? Is it the cash flow?
It's primarily cash flow and getting into larger assets, which long-term rents typically don't substantiate the holding costs. So instead of I kind of look at it like long-term rents, I can do them. I've proven it. I can hit doubles and singles. Like I'm kind of looking to hit a little bit bigger and grow a little bit quicker with some larger purchases.
Yeah, what I did find is at least, in my case as well, the short-term rentals really help me scale quick. They help me, with the cash flow, they help you scale quick and truly put in place a larger machine that allows you to compound at a faster rate. So that's been very helpful for me. Actually, it brought me to a point where I did quit my W-2 less than a month ago. And getting into it full time now, and that's been exciting. So yeah, it's definitely a smart move. Now, why the Jersey Shore? You mentioned that a couple times.
So I definitely have a fear of going too far out of my comfort zone. At least right away, my attention's pulled in other directions. So this wouldn't be my primary focus. So when I look at the Jersey Shore, I know it. I vacationed there for almost my entire life. I understand the towns, the dynamics, kind of how they operate. So for me, it's a step up into the short-term rental space, but also well within my comfort zone versus going to, say, Florida right away, which I think would require a lot more knowledge building on my end that I don't think I really have the time to dedicate towards.
That makes sense. Now let me ask you this effect of convenience that you're talking about, the convenience of having it close by in an area that you know, or with possibly an area that you have people in and stuff like that. Would you be willing to give up on returns for that convenience? Because there is an opportunity cost. The way I always look at things is if I have X dollars, which is typically a finite resource, and I have to invest it in a location, if I do not invest it in the right location, or if I do not, invest that money in a place with maximum returns, there's an opportunity cost to it, and on everything, the convenience, the safety, the security, the opportunity to not learn as much, typically comes with the cost. Is that something that's acceptable to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is, so for example, my properties are all at least 3 hours away. Most properties are actually my biggest property is about 4 hours away, and then the rest I've got two properties that are 11 hours away. So one of the things that I realized early on is that I tend to do better with properties when they are at a distance. And the reason being, when they're at a distance, I'm forced to focus on systems, processes, the team remotely, versus, hey, let me go fix this garage door. You know what I mean? You don't so I get more time freedom when the property is not close to me. There is a little bit of that effect of knowing that I have no choice but to depend on the team, and that pushes me to put in place the right systems and processes to make it successful. But you think that's too uncomfortable for you? Is that what you're saying?
No, in fact, I'm all on board with that. I don't ever need to visit the property.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
more about understanding the market and the dynamics and making for me, like a little bit more of an informed decision on that market
yep.
instead of going 11 hours away and having to study that market to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
am I going to underwrite this property correctly? Whereas the Jersey Shore, I understand the market already. I don't need to fix a garage door ever in my life. I probably shouldn't. Um, it's more about, hey, what's it going to take to get up to speed with a certain market,
Yeah,
versus, hey, I already have this knowledge from 20 years of
that's
it's
fair. That's fair. That can certainly be. It can also be an edge. You probably get an advantage by knowing that market so well. Now, in the
Mhm.
Jersey Shore, there's certainly towns where the regulations are a lot stricter. I know that there's, during season you're only allowed to rent out weekly rentals, and there's in the off season you can only rent out so many times. So there's a lot of regulations in the towns on the Jersey Shore, and that's primarily one of the reasons I was asking you these questions is because when I'm trying to build a business around short-term rentals, I don't like the city or the town telling me what I should do with my investment, right? Because my goal is to get maximum dollars from it, to get maximum return from it. And if I'm subject to their regulations, which might limit how much I can do, I'll give you an example. I have a client that we manage the property for. They have a property in Palm Springs in California. Fairly restrictive. You're only allowed to rent out the property 32 times a year.
Wow.
Okay? So it doesn't matter if it's a 1 night rental or a 4 night rental or a 7 night rental, whatever it is, you're
Mhm.
only allowed to rent it out so many times a year. Then you have to give them an application for every guest that's coming in, every new booking. There's an application that goes that says, disclosure saying this is who's coming, this is how many people are there, and all that. So that's very restrictive in my opinion. So that's where what happens is, at least in the short-term rental space, I want to try and get the maximum return on my investment in two ways. I want to buy it to produce maximum cash flow, and it needs to allow me the flexibility to play with my own pricing strategies and my own revenue management process versus this is the minimum 7 night stay, take it or leave it, right?
Mhm.
And I want to be able to capitalize on the asset if and when I ever dispose of the asset to move into something bigger or change the asset or whatever. I don't want to be faced with the issue of lower marketability because of the presence of stricter regulations. I want that asset to grow in value as much as possible. So I'm just kind of sharing this with you because that's been my experience. I personally feel a lot better knowing that they're going to let us run our business the way we want to. Okay, so just some watch outs there. So
Definitely.
yeah, so what would be some of your specific questions around short-term rentals? What would you like to tackle on the call today?
So what I would love to understand, and this is again a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but you go 4 hours away, 11 hours away,
Mm-hmm.
outside of say, AirDNA, or kind of any of those sites, like how do you A, pick a market and then B, dive into like saying, hey, this is going to be a market I'm either going to invest in or not going to invest in. What type of resources do you look for? And then what kind of information do you look for within those resources? I'd love to know.
So you mentioned AirDNA, so I'm going to give you a little word of caution here. Okay, there's some properties and some markets that AirDNA is okay. It's somewhat accurate. Gets close, but there's a lot of markets when AirDNA does not come close to what the actual projection is. I'll give you an example of a property that I own. It was in Gulf Shores. It is in Gulf Shores. AirDNA, when I was acquiring the property, said it would do something in the range of 120 to 130 a year. right? When we finally finished our first year, we did 160 on that property. So that difference there of 30 to 40,000 can easily become the difference between a good deal and a not so good deal, and may force you to just reject that market entirely. So none of these tools are a science, in my opinion. None of them are absolutely precise. Very hard to predict, because remember, there's so many different variables in STRs. There's the type of property. There's the market. You could be doing 30% better than your neighbor, and it's all dependent on that property. So much on that property. The dynamic of how you attract that guest is very important as well. So unlike long-term rentals, or unlike true real estate where you're buying and selling properties, short-term rentals is a lot of an art. So it takes the cash flow is higher, the risk is higher, and you need to be a lot more creative to get that cash flow and to get those returns. So the way I typically the way I work to identify markets is, I'm quite spread out in the entire country. For the properties that I own, the properties that we manage. So, we have a portfolio now of owned and managed properties that's well beyond 25, about 30 properties right now, right? And we're in a lot of different markets, some that I own in and some that we just manage in. So I have a fair indication of what markets are doing well, what markets are not doing well, because we're following the same processes. Our processes are pretty consistent. Across all our properties, the entire portfolio, whether we own or manage. So I already have an indication saying, hey, this market's good, this market's not doing so well. Even in Florida, hey, market A is okay, market B is performing way better than market A. So that's typically my starting point. And if I already have a market that is performing or outperforming, where we are outperforming the market, and I have a solid team, that's become a very important thing for me now. My scalability depends on my team, because if I have a market where I can get even slightly lower return, but I have a solid team on the ground, it allows me to get that property, to acquire the property, get it on the market and rent it out faster than a completely new market. Then I'll look at those markets first. So I'll give you an example. We have a property we manage in Bradenton, Florida. In Bradenton, the returns we've had have been spectacular. I mean, honestly, it's been doing really well. For example, the property that we manage there, the purchase price is something in the $600,000 range. And we just did over $100,000 in revenue for that property. Gross top line revenue, pre-expenses, pre-anything else. Okay. And in that market, I already have a team. When I say a team, I've got the regular maintenance team, cleaners, handymen, plumbers, electricians. I've got all those people. I also have, for example, a concierge team. If you wanted to, normally when you have properties that are in HOAs, you need somebody to roll out the trash, put the trash in, get the mail in, do all that stuff. So we have someone who does that, and we have a team on the ground that'll do things like yard maintenance, making sure everything is perfect for guest arrivals, inspections, and all that. I have a team. I have a property I'm managing there that does really well, and I know the returns are quite good. So why would I want to look elsewhere? And I know an agent locally. I work with a local agent that does really well and is able to help acquire a property there. So there's little to no reason for me to start looking for new markets or new regions, if that's the case. So I'm tapping into the existing network that I have to try and expand further. So that's typically my go-to. Now, I will play with numbers when I see a new market come up on AirDNA or on Price Labs or something like that. I will absolutely play with the numbers to make sure I'm not missing something. But most times I find that you can outperform in most markets if you have the right processes in place, as long as that market in general is able to give you that return. If the market has the ability and the capacity to give you a certain return, you're able to, and those numbers make sense to you, then you can typically, if you do the right things, you can truly maximize the return on that market. I don't know if I answered that question for you, but I think you got a gist of how the process I go into to look at and say, these are the markets I like.
What types of, so like I'm a firm believer that anything in like air DNA is going to be an average, right? And you're always going to have people below average pulling that down. So it would make total sense that you can go in and outperform through proper attraction. So what type of stuff do you do with your properties to get that above average attraction? Because that's really what's going to drive the top line, right?
100%, 100%. And one of the things that I think has been a game changer for us is we have a team, that we call the concierge managers. So they're basically our VAs in the Philippines who are available for the guest. Whether the guest calls or emails or not, that's secondary, but they're available for the guest 24/7. So when they know that they have someone they can reach out to if there's an issue, because I'll tell you what, if you're a guest and you call me at 2 a.m., I can't solve a problem for you no matter what I do. I can't wake up a plumber and say go there unless it's an emergency. Of course, that's different. But generally speaking, if you tell me, hey, this sink isn't draining too fast, right? I'm going to say, you know what, don't use that for now, and we'll send someone in the morning, right? 90% of guests, what they care about is that you are available to respond and you are available to listen to them and hear their concerns. And that's so we have a team that's available 24/7 to do it, right? So that's one way we outperform the market. The other way we outperform the market is we do a lot of proactive marketing, retargeting of customers to bring them back in to book directly with us, right? And if we are able to show them a good experience, what we also do is, because we have a portfolio of about 30 properties that we're managing under our brand, we also cross-market properties to other people. Let's say, you went to the Smokies and next year around you want to go to Florida, or next season you want to go to Florida, right? We've got different flavors of properties and we'll cross-market to you. If you come and stay in the Smokies, hey, you enjoyed the fall colors or whatever, it's cold up here, you're from New Jersey, it's cold, would you like to take a visit to Florida? We have another property, you enjoyed our service, you gave us a 5-star review, things are good. We have another property in our portfolio with the same level of service. Would you like to come stay with us and we'll give you 10% off? So we are able to outperform because of our direct marketing efforts as well. So that's been the other key. Between the two of these things, we get a lot of bookings.
And then, so as like a newbie getting into it, like how do you, those are amazing like retargeting strategies once you have the machine going. How do you start from 0 reviews, 0 bookings? And Airbnb, I know will promote you a little bit, but how do you build up that base to get to a point where you can kind of get the machine rolling?
It takes time. Took us 3 years, by the way. I mean, for us to truly start seeing the effect of this, and which is why, there's another question you need to think about. And you spoke about something really important. Okay, you said this is probably not going to be my number one thing. This is just something I'm going to do on the side. In your case, what I'm also guessing is because you are a realtor, you don't necessarily need the short-term rental loophole tax write-off, correct?
Nope.
You don't need that.
No, because I could just get it.
You can get it anyways. You can, because you're actively in the trade and the business, you can certainly get it, right? My recommendation to you would almost be that you work with a co-host to do this versus just doing it yourself. Pick the best market. So we have several clients who do exactly this. They say, in fact, we have clients who want the tax write-off. So we'll basically help them acquire the property in whatever market it is, almost like a turnkey service. They'll manage the property for a couple months. We'll support them. Now it's December 31st. January 1st, we take over and manage the whole thing for them. It's kind of turnkey now at that point for them. So we have several clients that we do that for. And, I would strongly recommend, because if you're going to go and invest a significant amount of money, it doesn't matter, even if it's, most STRs below, let's say 300,000-400,000, probably not even worth it. I usually say the return on time is probably best once you hit the $800,000 to $900,000 mark, maybe 600-700 at least. And if you're going to invest that kind of money and are looking to maximize the return, and at the same time, be able to have a good experience with it where you're not being pulled away from it, then I would strongly recommend you go that route. So, it's, for example, we charge 15% of revenue, and 90% of the times we will earn our keep pretty easily with that. We'll basically outperform most individuals by 15 to 20% in a normal year.
Yeah, 15% is awesome. Good for you, man.
Yeah. So it works out well, and it's for a short-term rental, that's actually not a bad deal for most people wanting to stay passive on it. So
Hmm.
it works out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I look at it like another attraction to me for a beach is, hey, there's really only call it 3.5 months
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
actual work involved.
Mm-hmm.
The fringe season, okay, maybe you have some stuff, but it's going to be relatively low effort, and then you essentially get 6 months off. You make all your money in about 10 to 12 weeks.
Yes, but I'll also tell you this. In when it's in season, most people are making that money, correct?
Yeah.
So what the difference between you and your competitors needs to be that off season. The good property managers, the people who truly manage the property, or the good owners who are managing their own property, that's when they truly outperform the market.
Hmm.
In season is easy. Anybody can book the property in season. It's what you do in the off season that matters to maximize the return. So even if it's the off season, let's say you make all your money in the 6 months or 3 months, whatever. In the off season, would you rather have the property booked or just stay vacant because, hey, I already made my money? You got off season the whole year. There's a lot of time. I think it's almost 8 months. I'd say in New Jersey on the coast.
Yep.
I used to live there, so I know that. In that 8 months, if I could rent it out for 2 months in the off season, that'd be spectacular. And typically, what we would do in a strategy like that. One more tip for you there is the property's already furnished. Do it as a short-term rental in season, and in the
Hmm.
off season, you want to do it as a mid-term furnished rental. So that's how I would play that. If you
That makes
truly
sense.
wanted to invest in the Jersey Shore, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing I try to think about is how can you maximize around holidays,
Hmm.
especially, and book that out for, say, a 5-day minimum or something around that time, to continue to get people in there.
Yes, so that's absolutely right. You want to maximize on the holidays, you want to maximize in the summer. The only thing you're going to run into is depending on the town on the Jersey Shore, you are going to run into issues as far as regulations go and minimum rental times. Now, again, there's plenty of um, unapproved or illegal Airbnbs that people are renting out and running there. But I think you're facing a risk. It's a big investment to take that risk.
Hmm.
You want to do it the right way, and you want to be able to maximize that return. So yeah, that's definitely possible. um, Again, it all goes into the underwriting. If you can look at that property and you can forecast and predict and say this is what it looks like, then by all means, yeah, to me, I don't like a property sitting vacant. I know some people say, hey, 8 months is off season, that's fine, whatever, whatever I get is okay. But to me, there is an opportunity to maximize that. In the off season, I like to have at least weekends booked.
Hmm.
So
When you go into a new market, say for example somewhere in Florida, the first time you went into Florida, like how did you go about looking up regulations? Is it as simple as Google searching? Do you call local realtors that are familiar with Airbnb? Do you call other hosts? Like what was your methodology for going out of market and then understanding regulation and also what's coming up in regulations? Because it might not be a law yet, but things are kind of in motion.
yeah, so the answer to that is all of the above. There's one more thing that I always do, which is we will speak with the city. We want to absolutely speak with the city. So I'll give you an example. There's a town outside of Austin called Lakeway. Okay, Austin has just made it okay to do short-term rentals and apply for permits. Lakeway allows it too, but I know that Lakeway, for example, from speaking with them, I know that they restrict it to a certain number. So you got only 25 permits or 30 permits for the entire town of Lakeway.
Mhm.
So while if you go in thinking that the town allows it with the permits, but you don't make that one call to the city to say, am I able to apply? What is the rule around this? Can I apply for a permit? You won't know that they're almost maxed out on the permits, and by the time you acquire your property and put it in service, you might be out of luck. So that's a big issue. So
Mhm.
I'd say the most critical one is to call the town and really figure out if they will allow short-term rentals or not. That's
Gotcha.
that's the one thing I'll say. Obviously, you got property managers locally, you got realtors that you know locally, and they're a big source of information for us as well.
Cool.
Awesome. So what does your timeline look like for to buy a place in the Jersey Shore?
Things go well. Somewhere towards like the very end of this year, like Q4 of this year, Q1 of next year. Um, it's really just securing all the kind of upfront cash you're going to need and then holding costs because you're going to get the best deals in the off season, but then you need to hold it until the main season. So it's really just understanding what that's going to look like. That would be my absolute goal.
So one of the tips I'll also give you, which I think is quite important, as since you're talking about acquiring a new property, a lot of people will be excited about getting the existing bookings, especially in the Jersey Shore. I know this is people go back to the same places over and over again. Mm-hmm. Hey, I went there last year. I'm going to go back again. I have a direct booking, whatever. Most buyers get excited about, hey, I'm buying this property and I already have, 50,000 worth of bookings on my property and I'm going to go buy this. I typically don't like to inherit the bookings. I'm just saying because it means you're basically taking over someone else's revenue management processes and pricing and all that stuff. You want to do that yourself. So I typically do not like taking on existing bookings. So just keep that in mind when you go and try to acquire one.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Someone that's owned it for 20 years, they don't need to maximize revenue the same way someone
that's exactly
brand new
right.
does.
Yep. And it's not even about maximized revenue. It's about maybe they're not keeping up with the times, with the technology these days, with the dynamic pricing stuff that's out there. Maybe they're not up on the trends. They don't understand. And they've been renting that same peak week to the same person for like $1,000 or, whatever, who knows, right? Which is kind of ridiculous. So you just got to watch that stuff because it happens all the time.
I definitely agree.
Yep. All right, cool. What else can I answer for you today?
Nothing. That was pretty much the majority of my questions. I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Vacation Rental Mastery. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in for our next episode, where the journey to financial freedom and lifestyle flexibility continues. Here's to your success in the exciting world of vacation rentals.